Okay, so the A formation bar chord, based off of the A chord, we're going to do something a little bit different with this chord. We're going to take these three fingers and replace them with just the pinky. And this can be done because all the notes are on the same fret and they're right next to each other. So instead of fretting it like this, take the pinky, put our thumb behind, and then we're going to bend, sort of hyperextend our pinky so that we're hitting those three notes. That in and of itself is kind of difficult and can even be somewhat painful if you haven't done it before. But you're kind of bending your pinky back just a little bit and you're using this last section of your pinky to grab those three strings. Okay? We're going to do the same thing, and those three strings are the D string, G string, and B string. You want to make sure when you're doing this, you're leaving room for your E string to be open. The tendency is to accidentally deaden that because you're not bending your finger enough. But bend your finger, get it off that high E string. A lot of that's going to be thumb position. If your thumb is too high up right here, it's going to be harder to do that. If your thumb is behind, it'll be easier. Okay? And we're going to do the exact same thing with that we did with the E form chord. We're going to start on the second fret though, and we're going to move it around. Back down. Okay. Likely your pinky will be very tired after that. Shake it off. Don't overdo it. Now you're going to combine this exercise with doing your first finger bar exercise. So essentially what we have is in this chord, when you combine those two, you've got a double bar chord. For your A chord though, you don't need to worry necessarily about barring over your low E string because you're not going to play it. So your first finger bar only needs to be with your fifth through your first string. And what you want to do is this bar you want to rest so that your first finger is actually muting your low E string. And practice moving that around a little bit. And you don't want to play your low E string anyway, but just in case you do, it'll be muted. Okay? Now we're going to combine them. This is one of the harder things to get used to because you're bending your pinky in a weird way and it takes just a lot of hand strength. And I really recommend starting this if you're not already following these lessons on an electric guitar. I really recommend starting on an electric because it takes a lot less hand strength to sound good doing it. Once you're comfortable on an electric, moving these techniques to an acoustic is a little bit easier. But starting with an acoustic with some of these techniques is kind of like, you know, starting with lifting weights that are too heavy for you and then working backward. It just doesn't really make sense. So what we're going to do is we're going to combine the bar with your first finger with the bar on your fourth finger, on your pinky. I find it easier to establish with this chord form to establish your first finger first, get that clean, and then add your bar over to the side. And now remember, there's a fret in between here. You're not doing this. You're leaving a fret in between. And that makes sense because when you're playing your A chord, there's a fret, your first fret, you're not playing anything on. Okay, so we're going to come up here to the third fret, get your first finger in place, make sure that's clean, and then put your fourth finger on and strum. Okay, and make sure again when you're doing it that you're bending this finger enough that you're letting those things ring through. Move that around. And then back down. Now, some people's fingers don't bend that way. Eventually you'll probably develop the technique. If it's easier for you to play your A chord like this, and then move your actual A chord up. So your pointer fingers, your first finger's free, and then bar like this. If that's easier for you, that'll work. And you can certainly do that, you know, switching from your E to your A form, and that makes a lot of sense until you start getting up here on these higher strings, or I'm sorry, on these higher frets, where it's awfully hard to fit all three of these fingers in that one fret, and it gets kind of messy. So experiment either way, you know, still experiment moving this A form chord around, and then experiment moving it around with just your pinky. And you can kind of go to whichever one is more comfortable for you, but it's a good idea to have both techniques down in case you're playing things up here. It helps to have that double bar positioning to get things clean. So all of the exercises I outlined today, the first finger up and down, the moving your E chord around, moving your A chord around, double bar, as well as the minor chord forms that we worked on earlier, and the tablature for the track. All of that stuff, in addition to an outline of this lesson, is available in the supplemental materials. So if you haven't been following along with those already during the lessons, check those out, and you can go back and review some of the things that we've done in this video to see visuals. And feel free to message me questions, as well as look me up on live Q&A, or ask any of the other teachers here questions. Hopefully these lessons so far are beneficial to you, and we'll see you soon for beginner lesson number 7.